We are now going to hear from one of the driving forces behind today's activities, the governing member of the Global Imams Council, chairman of the GIC's Senior Imams Committee, and one of the leading global voices for peace and moderation, Imam Muhammad Tawhidi. Imam, the microphone is yours. Push your button and away you go.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. Distinguished guests, honored colleagues, respected parliamentarians, esteemed diplomats, and leaders from across our national institutions, welcome. I also extend a warm welcome to our partners, Trends Research and Advisory, its administration joining us from Abu Dhabi, and the director of Trends' Canadian chapter. Your presence today deepens the importance of this gathering and strengthens the purpose of this forum. Before we begin this critical conversation, allow me to share the vision that brings two organizations, the Global Imams Council and Trends Research and Advisory, together in this room. The GIC has its headquarters in Canada and believes that Canada's diversity is a treasure, its freedoms are a responsibility, and its social fabric is too precious to be left vulnerable to the forces that seek to divide it. Our work here is not theoretical, it is driven by what we see on the ground every day, by the challenges our communities face, and by the rising tide of extremism that attempts to exploit religion, identity, and politics for destructive ends. And this is why we invited Trends leadership to Canada. Trends already has a growing presence in Quebec, led by Canadian citizens who are actively producing research, building networks, and contributing to our national conversations on peace, security, and responsible policy. Their voice is not foreign to Canada, it is part of Canada. Bringing their leadership here strengthens the work already being done on Canadian soil and ensures that the insights guiding global policy discussions are also informing our own. While the GIC represents the voice of responsible religious leadership, Trends represents the voice of rigorous policy research and national security expertise. Together, we form a partnership that combines moral authority with analytical depth. Together, we confront the realities that many hesitate to speak about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Forum on Peace and Security, and not a forum for rehearsing familiar talking points. The title itself carries a responsibility because peace and security are not separate conversations. They are one conversation. And the forum dedicated to them requires us to speak honestly, to speak courageously, and to speak clearly about the issues that confront us. National security is not a slogan. It is not an academic exercise. It is the shield that protects our democracy, the guardrail that preserves our freedoms, and the foundation upon which peace, coexistence, and stability are built. And let me be unequivocal. There is no threat greater to national security today than the Muslim Brotherhood, the threat of the Muslim Brotherhood. No threat greater in its reach, no threat greater in its ideological influence, no threat greater in its ability to infiltrate, manipulate, and mobilize. This is not rhetoric, it is reality. Other nations are waking up to this threat. Other nations have recognized what this organization truly represents. And around the world, governments are acting decisively. Across the Middle East, the Muslim Brotherhood has been banned or designated a terrorist organization. In Europe, governments are confronting its networks and exposing its influence operations. And in the United States, it has become the hottest national security topic in Washington, D.C. In August this year, the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio publicly confirmed that the United States is actively working to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization, aligning with the newly introduced Muslim Brotherhood Terrorist Designation Act of 2025, championed by Senator Ted Cruz and supported by national security leaders across Congress. And just 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, on November 18, 2025, Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued a historic proclamation designating both the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Council on American Islamic Relations CARE as foreign terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations under state law. The world is moving, nations are waking up, security establishments are responding, and yet Canada is noticeably absent from this international conversation. We cannot afford this silence. Not when the evidence is overwhelming, not when the consequences of inaction are unfolding before our eyes, because here in Canada, CARE has friends and ideological fellows, and Muslim Brotherhood aligned groups across Canada openly declare that they follow the teachings of Hassan al-Banna, the ideological father of modern terrorism, whose ideas inspired Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, you name it, and every major Islamist terrorist movement of our age. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not an accusation. This is their own self-identification. This is their own ideological lineage, written in their own materials, published in their own words. Our Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Mark Carney, landed yesterday in the United Arab Emirates. According to a statement by the Prime Minister's office, he will meet with the UAE President, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and that meeting took place before this forum, to discuss the growing partnership between our two countries, particularly in the areas of energy, agriculture, infrastructure, and AI. Canada has so much to offer the world, remarkable strengths in trade, in innovation, in artificial intelligence, diplomacy, and multicultural harmony. Yet, despite these assets, Canada has unfortunately fallen behind in several critical areas of national security and public protection. So let's ask a question, since our Prime Minister is in the UAE. Why is it that in the United Arab Emirates there are 0 extremist mosques, 0 radical religious centers, 0 extremist schools, 0 terror cells, 0 organizations that sympathize with or finance terrorism? Why don't we see the flags of Al-Qaeda and Hamas and Hezbollah raised in the streets of Abu Dhabi and Dubai, as we do in Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal? Why is it that in Canada, the reality is starkly different? We continue to see extremist mosques, radical centers, and schools that fall outside these standards of responsible leadership. Throughout the years, we have witnessed attacks on our sovereignty, threats to our national security, and a concerning rise in mobilization by Islamist extremist groups. These groups are able to gather thousands of people into the streets, sometimes monthly, sometimes weekly, and sometimes even daily, as we saw after October 7, openly championing some of the world's most violent organizations, many of which are formally designated as terrorist entities by Public Safety Canada. The answer is the difference is leadership. Because this outcome did not happen by accident. It is the result of firm laws, responsible leadership, clear moral boundaries, and a national commitment to safeguarding society. Leadership involves educating members of society, raising awareness, and supporting institutions that protect communities from radicalization. And yes, it is our duty to speak openly, consistently, and courageously about the Muslim Brotherhood. It is our religious duty. It's a human duty. It's a national duty, which remains the Muslim Brotherhood, which remains the ideological mother of nearly every Islamist terrorist group operating today. There is not a single major Islamist extremist movement whose lineage does not trace back directly or indirectly to the Muslim Brotherhood. And at times I am asked, what keeps you up at night? The answer is not a philosophical one. I'm not a philosopher. It is real, it's visible, and it is urgent. What keeps me up at night is the sight of extremist groups mobilizing thousands in our cities while claiming to speak for Islam, my God, my religion, my Prophet, and my Holy Quran. And with all due respect, we should begin to take notice the concerns Muslims have not just the converts with regards to the extremists, but the very Muslims whose ancestors were those who stood side by our Prophet Muhammad. We're not people who embraced Islam 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago. This is our religion. God spoke to us in our city, in our language. And therefore, when we see an organization, entities such as the Muslim Brotherhood, who do not represent Sunni Islam, because the Muslim Brotherhood is an organization, it is not a sect, not a school of thought. They have their own charter. They have hijacked the two most important words, nouns in Islam, the word Muslim and the word brother. And they have given us nothing but Bin Laden, September 11, down until October 7. It has to be said. So what keeps me up at night is the growing influence of the Muslim Brotherhood and its networks. What keeps me up at night is the silence, the hesitation to confront these movements before they inflict deeper harm on our institutions, our youth, and our democracy. And what keeps me up at night is knowing that Canada has the capacity to lead, yes, lead, yet risks falling behind at the very moment the world is waking up to the dangers of political Islam. It is our duty to confront extremist narratives before they gain ground. It is our duty to shield our youth from radical indoctrination. It is our duty to ensure that no organization hides behind religion to justify violence or destabilize our democracy. It was in this spirit of education and civic responsibility that the Global Imams Council launched 3 weeks ago the Symbol of Terror guidebook present in front of you, a guidebook for law enforcement. This publication supports officers across the country in identifying and disrupting extremist activity by recognizing terrorist flags, symbols, emblems, and their ideological connections. It is a highly specialized work produced with utmost precision and care by individuals who have witnessed terrorism firsthand and understand its markers beyond superficial images. You're invited to take this copy home. Share it with your colleagues, institutions, and anyone who may need this knowledge. And if more copies are needed, more are available. It is no exaggeration to say that Canada is now the first country in the world to have such a comprehensive, specialized, and actionable guidebook. But this is not enough to push back against the Muslim Brotherhood, their rallies, and their supporters who raise these flags on our streets. Because if we are serious about peace, we must be serious about the threats that undermine it. If we are serious about coexistence, we must be serious about those who oppose it. And if we are serious about safeguarding our democracy, we must be serious about confronting the networks that seek to destabilize it. And so I say this with clarity and without hesitation. It is time that Canada officially and finally conducts a transparent, expert-led study into the Muslim Brotherhood in Canada. Admit their presence, first of all, and then examine their influence, their funding, their intimidation tactics, and their abuse of religion and hijacking of social causes, and importation of extremist narratives from abroad onto Canadian soil, so we can protect not only Canadian Muslims, but Canadian democracy itself. And in this regard, I call upon our partners at Trends Canada, led by Canadians, to ensure that the next volume of the Muslim Brotherhood Encyclopedia, present here with us today, if you can see behind us, the Muslim Brotherhood Encyclopedia, published in English, is the most rigorous, powerful, professional content that gathers not just intelligence, but essential information for governments and police and heads of state and politicians to be able to not just imagine the threat, but see it firsthand. For example, the International Organization of the Muslim Brotherhood. And of course, you have their media and communication activities. And this encyclopedia, Trends Research and Advisory, is working on 30 volumes, so far 15 in 16 different languages. I go back to Trends Canada, my dear partners. We want you to ensure that the next volume of the Muslim Brotherhood Encyclopedia is dedicated entirely to the Muslim Brotherhood in Canada. Dr. Wael, promise? The next volume of this encyclopedia must be dedicated to the Muslim Brotherhood in Canada. Promise? There's a language barrier. No, but seriously. أستاذنا الدكتور الغالي الموسوعة القادمة تختص في الإخوان في كندا. وعد? Promise? Deal.
Promise for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Why? Yeah. Why? Why? So that it may serve as evidence, as expert submissions, and as authoritative research the moment this long-awaited study is undertaken by those courageous enough to say that Canada deserves it. In conclusion, from this Friday sermon that's on a Thursday, in conclusion I say, peace without security is fragile, and security without peace is incomplete. But peace with security, that is the foundation of a nation, that is the foundation of a nation that thrives, a society that endures, and a democracy that stands firm against extremism. Peace requires the will to act, the will to lead, and the will to stand firm when others hesitate. And in this spirit, we must recognize the beautiful and wonderful country of Kazakhstan, their positive contribution to world peace by joining the Abraham Accords recently. A powerful reminder that even when nations already enjoy strong relations, there can never be too much peace. Kazakhstan's decision demonstrates that the accords will only continue to grow and expand. And next up is Saudi Arabia. And that they cannot be undone by acts of terrorism, including those witnessed on October 7, because the foundations of peace built through strength, clarity, and principled leadership are far stronger than the forces that seek to destroy them. The question I leave you with is this: will Canada continue to remain an observer, watching global issues unfold, and even watching challenges grow on its own soil? Or will we see a Canada that reclaims its streets, its institutions from the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood and lends its credibility and leadership to expand this new era of peace embodied by the Abraham Accords? Thank you all, and I wish you a productive and meaningful session.
Thank you, Imam Tawhidi. I think, Tariq, I want to